So have we seen any evidence of this in anything that we've done? As a matter of fact, we have. So the first thing we'll talk about is telomere research, and we have worked with a very well-known medical doctor. We've done this work over a 3-year period of time. We use a test from a company called Repeat Diagnostics, which clinically is considered a gold standard for telomere testing. We've worked now with over 50 people in these tests over these years, and we found some pretty extraordinary things. Oh, let me go back. There we go. We found that consistently we could lengthen the telomeres, and if you're interested in doing this, you take a baseline and then you take another measurement at 6 months. We tried doing blood draws at 3 months and we didn't see any change, but when you had a minimum of 6 months, that's where you began to see the telomere lengthening. And then again, there were effects at 1 year out. So we did these studies with blood draws at baseline, 6 months, and 12 months. And we found that in as little as 6 months, we could get enough telomere lengthening to that's equivalent of 8.5 years of age reversal. So this is a very significant impact. The other thing about this is that there are many different factors when it comes to aging. So telomeres, lengthening them, can protect our health. They can increase the number of times that our cells divide, meaning we can increase our lifespan, but we need to do other things. We need to get rid of the cells that are dead that hang around that cause oxidative inflammatory stress. We need to manage inflammatory stress. We need to have a healthy diet. We need to exercise. So there's many things that we need to do if we're going to defeat aging. But certainly telomere lengthening is an incredibly important part. Now, we have now about a year and a half worth of research into this device that I invented called the biomimetic enhancer, and I'm on generation 5 of this. The first one was just to see if the technology would work, and then the second one was intended to be a device used on human beings, and it actually turned out that it was too strong. You couldn't use it for more than 10 minutes because it placed too much stress on the body because of the effect. And basically, this is a new form of light therapy. So this is different than the patches. This is different than a cold laser. And it provides light therapy in a very interesting way. The backstory of this is that when I was doing my studies on ants and on lobsters, my thinking was everyone's looking at the biochemistry, but we know that it's the biophysics, the bioelectrical system and the biomagnetic fields in the body control the biochemistry. So I started to create a model to look at what were the biophysics involved in lobsters and ants, were there any commonalities, and could we figure out which wavelengths of light were going to be responsible for preventing these lobsters and ants from aging. By the way, lobsters have been found to be 132 years old and never have aged in the process. Do we have any Marvel fans here? We got a few Marvel fans? Okay. You know how, well, maybe you don't know, but Asgardians, right, like Thor and Odin, they actually get stronger as they age. So the lobsters are the Asgardians of Earth, right? They actually get stronger as they age. They actually become more sexually active as they age too, as it turns out. So if you're wondering whether or not you have to give up sex when you're 200 or 300 years old, the good answer is you'll be more sexually active then than you are today. It probably explains why Noah was having kids at 550 years old, right? Okay, This device is intended to be a piece of technology that is biomimetic. It's meaning we're copying a process in nature, putting it into a piece of technology. And we did a number of pilot studies with this on the first generation, the second generation, the third generation, and now we're up to number 5. And we wanted to see what would happen in these tests. And there were a number of things that occurred that are very, very difficult to explain. For example, the pH of the blood in the test subjects went from about 7.6 to 9.8 in only 10 minutes. But yet it did that without any change in the dissolved solids, meaning potassium is going to be the most powerful regulator of pH. That was discovered at Oxford. So when you're eating vegetables that are high in potassium, the alkalinity is actually coming from potassium, right? And so somehow this technology was able to increase the pH without changing the amount of electrolytes in the body. And we don't know how that's possible yet. So for example, I see a medical use of this, and I can say this because we're not selling the tech. I see a medical use for this is that we know that cancer cells reproduce anaerobically, and as a result, they produce lactic acid through their metabolism. And so I want to look at a medical application for this where you take somebody that has lung cancer, cancer in the thyroid, you'll hold this device over the tumor and allow it to dissolve the tumor with light. So that's where I think something like this could go. The other thing that it showed, which was really weird, it was creating some kind of energy field around the body that shows there's an immediate decrease in fat and increase in muscle. So we don't know why the equipment would show that. And when we measure aging, we want to look at the total, one of the measures that we want to look at is the size of the cell. So in other words, the electrical potential of the cell is optimum when we're young and healthy. And then about age 25, the fibroblasts begin to decrease production of collagen, and collagen is what holds the cells together. It's called the cytoskeleton, and the most abundant protein in the body, of course, is collagen. So what that means is that after the age of 25, we're aging, the collagen production is going down, the cell is shrinking, that inhibits the ability of the cells to hold water, and the electrical charge around the cell decreases, and as the cells divide, this reduces the amount of energy transfer that occurs in a back EMF over to the new cells being created. What this simply means is that if we can expand the cells and get them back into a more youthful state, that is a very important part of age reversal, and we found that this device would equate to about a 3-year reversal in age in about 10 minutes. So why aren't we using it now? The reason is because having an alkalinity in your blood of 9.8 all the time is not a good thing, and is going to overstress the cell. So we know the tech works. Now it's a matter of refining it, and I think we're getting there very, very nicely. Okay. I have a few different pieces of equipment that we use. 2 pieces of equipment that I use quite regularly are a biopulsar and a Menla scan. And a biopulsar is like an EEG for the organs in the body. So in real time, we can see the bioelectrical activity in different regions in the brain, in the heart, the liver, the kidneys. And then it can take all of that data and distill it down into a graph, which I'll show you, a visual image. So this would be a baseline reading that's normal. 30 seconds after applying the biomimetic enhancer, we see an increase in the energy field, and then 90 seconds after application, we see a further increase in the energy field around the body. So in other words, the changes that we saw through the blood and urine analysis matched up to the bioelectrical readings. Very powerful effect very quickly. Now, we want to create a LifeWave lifestyle. So when you wake up in the morning, you're drinking water, and you should be drinking water now because it's a great way to help manage weight, clear toxins out, and give your body the water that it needs to produce energy. But wouldn't it be great if we could drink water that reversed the aging process? So, okay, so how are we going to do this? You might recognize this as ice. And so I want to do some experiments. That is just a mark on there, so I know it's normal ice. But we did some experiments, and in our lab, we created a machine that restructures water in an entirely new way. So this is not alkaline water. It's not clustered water. This is something entirely different. I mentioned that I contacted a friend of mine who's a scientist that specializes in analyzing water. He's a physicist, and he's analyzed 200 different types of water. And I sent him what I'm about to show you, and I said, well, what do you think about this? And he said, I have never seen anything like this before. I'm really excited to get involved with this project. So what we want to do with this, the whole goal was to put energy into water so that when you drink it, it releases that energy into the body and triggers a regenerative effect. So on the left is regular ice. On the right is the bottom of the beaker. And you'll notice all of these crystal formations, and in the center is an implosion. So normally with ice, it expands as it freezes. And this water doesn't behave that way. It actually implodes. And some really unusual things happen. That was one of the first samples that I made. And you can clearly see an energy vortex that's frozen in the center. So what's going on here is that as the water freezes, the energy is released and it implodes and forms this vortex pattern. By changing the settings on the equipment, interestingly enough, we can get different effects. And this is good because, as we know, each organ in the body, different cells have their own resonant frequency. So this means we can create custom water that goes to your heart, water that goes to your brain, water that goes over to your liver, and so on and so forth. I don't think they're making those yet, so we might have a market for that, right? Oh, I'm good, Renata. Thank you. Okay, here's another view of this so you can get a different view from it. And so this has been highly repeatable. It wasn't an accident. Sometimes when we change the settings, we still get an implosion, but we get these other beautiful crystal formations that happen. That's another experiment that we did, again showing an implosion but just slightly modifying the settings. Okay, I have to prepare you for this one because this one's really weird. I changed the settings on the equipment, and then I would open the freezer door. At that time, today we have a freezer door that has a glass front, so we do time-lapse photos, which we're going to put on our social media, by the way, and so you can see what this water looks like as it freezes. I have some pictures to show you today. But in the original start of this, I would open up the freezer door and look inside, and on this particular day, as the water was freezing, what I saw was this snake-like formation rising out of the water. So when you have one of these machines, you can do these tests yourself, if you so dare. There's just another view of it. But you can see there's clearly some energy in this water because water doesn't usually take the shape of triangles and snakes. The other thing that it did, which was really odd, as it began to freeze, the snake laid down, and you can see it form this cylinder right on top of the water. So that was kind of odd. I hope none of you are eating potato chips, right? They're not really very healthy. Well, apparently we found we could make water potato chips with this. So we found the water could rise out of solution and form these weird potato chip structures. And there's another view of it. So there's clearly energy in the water, and it's being released. Sometimes it forms fish scales if you change the settings. And again, these beautiful triangular patterns. So the water, again, will implode, but it freezes into different shapes depending on what you're doing with it. So this is going to be something that will happen in the future. And another thing that we found with it is that when you drink this water, the energy goes right to the head in one of them. And I'm going to show you now what I did with colloidal gold. And so we began to do some experiments other than just water. So I said, let's do some metal colloid experiments, since metals can conduct electricity in the body. And of course, this is what colloidal gold looks like. And as it starts to freeze, notice what happens. So I'm planning to take these beakers and hang them from my Christmas tree and have some beautiful ornaments. That was my first thought. But then as it kept going, the ball began to shrink. Then after 3 hours and 45 minutes, it's imploding. 4 hours, it's still imploding. And then 4 hours and 15 minutes, it disappears. So there's some very unusual phenomena that occurred. And by the way, since then, since unfreezing the water and cutting into it, the colloid actually, when it gets small enough, it comes out of solution. So you find gold right at the center of that bubble. This is just another example of what the colloidal gold looks like when it goes through freezing. Okay, another thing that we're going to do with this company is develop technology to build the business, but the products we release are intended to benefit the planet. And not that we're not benefiting the planet now, but we're going to develop products that do this in a very different way. So the type of things, of course, that we're concerned about is, as we all know, prices of gasoline are increasing. We won't have access to fossil fuels in the near future because they all want us driving electric cars that are going to be recharged by nuclear power plants. So, we're going from global warming to putting more nuclear waste in the ground, and I personally am opposed to that and have a better solution. I don't know about any of you, but I think Bill Gates has enough money, and he's the one funding these new nuclear power plants, and so I think that's got to stop. And we want to do this in such a way that we can have a business model, clean up the planet, do something that's environmentally friendly, do something that is consistent with how nature would do it. So you're going to see that tomorrow. Okay?